Now, one of the stars of the Hobbit movies is Richard Armitage. He plays the dwarf leader Thorin Oakenshield, and I spoke to him about the movies recently. Richard, can you talk a little about your involvement in The Hobbit? Obviously, you played the dwarf leader, and it's a very central role. Were you cast out of the blue? Did you go looking for it? Did they come looking for you?
Yeah, I think they came to me, really. I think Peter was familiar with some of my work, and it was a very, very short casting process, one of the shortest I've ever had. And, he was in London for 2 days, and I went to meet him and read for an hour and a half some of the scenes, and they taped it. And, a few weeks later, there was a call in to say that they were offering me the role. But yeah, it was very succinct, which I kind of admired, because Peter, it sort of sums him up, really. He knows what he wants, and when he wants it, he tends to get it.
So was he a closet Spooks fan, or?
I think he did watch a bit of Spooks, actually. I think North and South was something that he was also interested in seeing. Ironically, the day I went to meet him, I had a back injury that I'd sustained on Spooks, and I somehow seem to remember it informing the way that I played the character, so it was meant to be, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've read your height as 6'2.5". Now, it seems to me to be almost perverse to be casting you as a dwarf.
That's exactly what I said to him as well when I met him. I'm like, what on earth am I doing in this room? And no matter how much they tried to convince me that they were doing the right thing, I've always had this doubt in my head about, why would you hire big actors and shrink them on film? And then very recently I saw the Battle of the Five Armies for the first time as I was doing some post-production sound sync, and I understood exactly why he'd cast these guys, cast us. And he needed big 6-foot fighters to perform that battle. He needed men in their prime, and I totally understood.
Yeah, and is this would this be way off or way from sort of out of left field? That was he thinking about your character almost as the equivalent of Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, the heroic character?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I feel like there's elements of Aragorn in Thorin. I think Tolkien is experimenting with the idea and does this a lot in terms of Tolkien's idea of kingship, is that he often plays around with the themes of burden and this solitary burden, and so I feel that Peter's picking up that baton and really playing that theme with Thorin, the idea that ultimately the kingship sort of crushes him and becomes a bit of a weight that he has to carry. So in that respect, it's similar to Aragorn, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's a very physical part, and indeed, they're very physical movies. Did you have to do any special training for it? I imagine you did.
Yeah, from the day we arrived, we were in training. We were learning how to use the weapons, learning how to walk like a dwarf. I was doing quite a lot of vocal training because I wanted him to sound different to me. But when it came to the third movie, it was a year later that we came back to do pickups. So it was like sort of holding the training in limbo for a year, and then training for a marathon that you didn't know how many miles you were going to have to run, because he worked out the battle sort of on a daily basis. So we were trying to work to a level of fitness which was optimum, but at the same time he could have said it's a 3-mile marathon or it's a 300-mile marathon, and it turned into about a 60-mile marathon in the end.
Yeah. And is it true that you were on it for about 18, on the three of them for about 18 months?
Yeah, we did about 18 months altogether, and then we came back for another, like a 3-month period, just to sort of finish off the third film, and that 3-month period was very, very intense, and most of the sort of physical work and some of the key scenes happened in that pickup period.
Now, were you required to wear any prosthetics? I know you have a sizable nose in the films.
That's actually my nose.
Oh, is it?
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. No, it's no. I had a prosthetic forehead and nose.
I nearly sank to the floor there. Sorry.
No, there was a fair bit. One of the challenges and one of the skillful things about what the makeup artist and the digital artist did with Thorin is that they've really made the makeup as invisible as possible. So you don't really see a man in makeup. You see the character, which again I'm very grateful for, and has taken an awful lot of work, especially in post-production, to make it as invisible as possible, because anything else would be very distracting. So, and because we follow his story so acutely through the film and in close-up, it needed to be, a character, not a makeup.
Yeah. And by the way, did the perspective in the scenes involving the dwarfs and humans, was it a problem in any way?
It was always a challenge. It was always very technical, but once you'd got over the aspect of who was standing on a box and who was in a trench, and then sometimes who was on a green set and who was on the real set, it was just about engaging your imagination and trying to forget about the sort of technical limitations of what it was demanding of you.
By the way, could you give listeners, Richard, some sense of the kind of detail that that you were required to provide? I suppose that everybody was required to provide in the Hobbit movies, in terms of the villages, in terms of the background. They are very kind of detailed movies.
They are. One of the things that always impressed me about the way that the films were constructed is that the digital work and the practical work, what Weta Digital and Weta Workshop do, it's so specific. So the examples that I have are that in Lake Town, for example, every single piece of cutlery and every piece of glassware, like the glasses on the tables, were all made and blown by glass blowers. Every book that you see in the Master of Lake Town's house was bound by hand. Every tile on the roof was cut by hand. And then equally in the digital world, you can do a close-up of the face of an elk that Fandral is riding, and you can see peach fuzz on the snout of the elk that moves in the breeze. It's incredibly detailed, and it's hours and hours of painstaking work that they do, and it's why the films just look so sumptuous.
Yeah. Now, you recently returned to the theatre to play the lead role of John Proctor in The Crucible. It sounds like it was a very demanding part.
It was. I mean, I always feel like, I came off The Hobbit thinking I've never worked as hard as that in my life, and I just came off The Crucible saying I've never worked as hard as that in my life. It was a 3.5-hour play, and I was the central role, and I wasn't off stage for very long, and it was physically demanding and vocally demanding, because you can't stop in the middle and take a break and take a sip of water. You have to just keep going, and the audience were so close to us. We were in the round, and they were no more than sort of 2 feet away. But it was great. It was really great to get back to that immediate discipline of something which is live. And although we filmed it for digital theatre, you still can't escape the fact that when you're in the room with that live action happening, there's something really thrilling about that. And I was as thrilled as the audience were.
Yeah. And how long did you do it for? Was it 3 months or?
It was about a 13-week run. Yeah. So we finished last week.
Now, you've had, as well as that, I mean, you've had a great, I don't know if you'd see it like this, but a very, very impressive run on TV down the years with Spooks and Robin Hood and Ultimate Force and North and South, all very sort of creditable series and indeed parts. Where do you go from here? Is it the intention maybe to veer off towards cinema, or what do you...
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying kind of working on film at the moment, and so wherever I can do that. So I did a British film this year called Urban and the Shed Crew, which will hopefully go to a festival next year, and I'm about to do Alice Through the Looking Glass, a small part in that, and then I do an independent movie shooting in LA. So, this year for me has been a very wide spread of different kinds of acting. So I'll have been on stage in 2 independent movies and a big Disney movie. So I'm getting the best of a lot of things at the moment.
Yeah, and the Hollywood movie, is that Black Sky? Is that...
Into the Storm, which was released earlier in the year, which that did very well. That was a different kind of genre of film. That was a sort of disaster movie. So a little bit of a departure from what I normally do, but very, very interesting and exciting for me.
Richard Armitage, star of The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies there.